He's like, well, you go, Elisa Massa, and we'll fall close behind. She's like, that's how I want you to do me. He's like, excuse me? She's like, never mind. That's at the end of season 2. Never mind. And so she leaves, chat. She leaves. Hello, I just wanted to thank you for clicking on my video, and I wanted to let you know not only do I create content on my YouTube channel here, Class in a Glass, but I'm also on Twitch where I play single-player games, multiplayer games. I do movie reviews, cartoon reviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also, it would be a big help if you can check out my Patreon, where you can gain access to audio commentaries, reactions, and the ability to submit questions for my podcasts and videocasts. And all that content can be found in the links below. In the meantime, enjoy the video. Hey, chat, let's talk about Gargoyles. Let's talk about Gargoyles for a bit. Want to talk about Gargoyles? Gargoyles episode 17. We're in the middle of season 2, or the beginning of season 2, technically, chat. Let's talk about Gargoyles, chat. I love them Gargoyles. That's some good stuff. Interesting title. A Lighthouse in the Sea of Time, chat. We start, chat. We start with 2 very British people, chat, who I'm going to call Mr. and Mrs. Plumbottom, and they're excavating a Gaelic ruin, chat, somewhere in Scotland. It's somewhere in Scotland, chat. And Mrs. Plumbottom, she has broken through. She has broken through the crevasse that they were slowly needling at for some time, chat, just scraping and brushing until she comes out of it. She's like, oh my! And they see themselves, chat, in a large anti-chamber filled with all sorts of artifacts, chat. Everything you could possibly imagine. Jewels, treasure, books. Although the books have been, they've long rotted, chat. But in the middle of this chamber, Mr. and Mrs. Plumbottom see an ancient stone chest. And like typical Prometheus scientists are like, I'm going to fucking touch that. They go over there and they read the inscription. And on the inscription it says, warning to those who are of man. An object of power resides in here. Fair warning, you could die. Well, we would never harm our fellow man, wouldn't we, Miss Plumbottom? Oh, no! And they open the fucking Pandora's box, chat, and who pops out? A specter of Merlin. Merlin pops up and's like, you fucked up, kids. And he slowly starts absorbing their sweet essence. But then he's like, all right, I can see that you guys are good, that your quest in life is to just learn about the annals of history. So I will give you back your life force that I was sucking, and you can take what's inside. And Mr. and Mrs. Plumbottom look inside of the treasure chest, and they see, chat, the Scrolls of Merlin. The book that might as well be the Book of Merlin, chat, all of his secrets. And they go, oh my, these things should be shared with the world. And the whole world's learning about it, chat, because then we fucking cut to New York City. New York, baby. And Lexington, who has familiarized himself with computers and newspapers and the internet chat, he's fucking very savvy. He's very savvy. He is telling the Gargoyles and Elisa Mazza and everyone else who's listening that apparently the Scrolls of Merlin, they're being shipped. They're being shipped to the Metropolitan Museum of Art here in New York. And Elisa's like, yeah, I've actually been assigned to the case. Like, she says, whoa, it's so cool to actually read the Scrolls of Merlin. Have they unlocked them yet? And Elisa's like, no, they're sealed, and people are actually worried about, like, unsealing them because you'd be disturbing an artifact. And Lexington's like, well, I hope you do get the chance to read them, the things that we can learn about them, and it'd be amazing. And the thing is, Broadway, who is the, he's funny enough, voiced by the same voice actor who does Patrick Star, is like, who's this Merlin guy? I don't know him. Just sounds like another conjurer or whatever, another goofy magician. And Goliath's like, actually, Merlin is one of the most powerful wizards to ever exist in this world. There are actually many books in the library Broadway that you can read about him. He's quite interesting. And Broadway's like, why'd I read a fucking book full of silly squiggles when I could just watch it on the TV? Right, Hudson? And Hudson's like, shut up! I'm watching celebrity hockey right now. Jeff Goldblum's kicking Michael Jackson's ass. It's like, wow, that's a hell of a celebrity match. He's like, Bronx, get your ass up here. And Bronx goes, he goes up there, Chad. He nestles next to Hudson because he bonded with him, Chad. He's like their puppy. He's like a little gargoyle puppy. It's interesting. There's like a gargoyle hierarchy. You can be like a sentient gargoyle. You can also be like a derpy dog gargoyle. It's like you want to be a sentient one, like a dog gargoyle. And Lisa's like, yeah. So I've been assigned to the detachment that's guarding the Scrolls of Merlin as they're moving from. I don't know why she's on a fucking boat. And apparently, they're right off the coast of New York City, Chad, right off the island of Manhattan. She's going to go over there, and she's going to guard the Scrolls of Merlin along with Mr. and Miss Plumbottom. It's like, great. And she's like, well, I mean, the thing is, they are very, they're worth a lot of money. They're sought after by so many people. Apparently, they can contain all of Merlin's spells and thoughts and occult magic. Who knows who might want it? And Goliath's like, we all fucking know. David Xantos, of course. He's like, well, you go, Elisa Mazza, and we'll follow close behind. She's like, that's how I want you to do me. He's like, excuse me? She's like, never mind. That's at the end of season 2. Never mind. And so she leaves, Chet. She leaves. And she goes with her partner Bluestone, and they go off in the speedboat, chat, and they meet this giant, large shipping vessel, and they climb aboard, where they meet Mr. and Mrs. Plumbottom, and they're like, well, we think this is quite unnecessary. Who would want to steal the Scrolls of Merlin? And, Lisa's like, there's a lot of nefarious characters in New York City. Like, I'm just happy that we're here to guard them. He's like, well, we're happy to have your assistance, Miss Mazza. By the way, what race are you? He's like, listen, don't be racist, British person, okay? Take it easy. So, they're shipping, the ship, it's a stormy night, though. It's a stormy night. It's very rough seas. But, oh, no, they see these 2 fucking jets just hovering overhead. And like, the fuck are those? And they immediately go, boom, and they come down right towards them, chat, start shooting. And they're like, holy shit. And they all fucking take cover as like the windows are blown out. Mr. Plump Bottom is like, ah! Mr. Plump Bottom, Chad, he's shot. He's eviscerated, Chad. He just fucking explodes. Mrs. Plump Bottom's like, no, Mr. Plump Bottom. He's dead. He's dead, Chad. And Lisa's like, oh, shit, I should have known. Thankfully, the Goliath and the Gargoyles, they knew some shenanigans were about to happen, right? And, Lexington's like, wow, Goliath, you're right. Yeah, people are going after the Scrolls of Merlin. He goes, all right, well, let's take out those fucking jets so no one steals these goddamn scrolls. But then Lexington says, well, those jets, they're especially kind of jets, Goliath. They're able to land like helicopters. And look, they're already boarding the ship. And these jets have landed on the ship, Chad, and you can see these 2 mercenary shit. They get out and they start blasting. They start killing all the people on the boat. And eventually they just fucking, they go up there, they go to the captain's nest, and you see Mrs. Plumbottom. She has the chest, and she's like, why would you want to steal these? These are priceless artifacts. The world should know about them. And the one female mercenary is like, oh my God, you're so right. I made a horrible decision. My apologies. And she puts her gun away. And she goes, thank you. That's so kind of. And the guy just shoots her in the fucking face. And it's like, oh my God, Mrs. Plumbottom. She's dead, shit. And then they take the scroll. They take the box. And they go, here, you take a scroll and I'll take a scroll. Divide and conquer. And they run back to their hovercrafts, chat. They run back to their planes. But the Gargoyles, they're hot on the case, chat. And as they take off, Broadway, chat. He attaches to the female mercenary, while Hudson, he goes after the male mercenary. He's the first one to get there. He breaks through the glass, plexiglass canopy, Chad, breaks through it, and he just goes right in the guy's face, takes out his fucking eye. Guy's like, oh, he didn't even know what happened. He's like, what happened? He's like, I can't see. Oh, takes out his eye. The guy presses a button on his dashboard, chat, right as Hudson grabs one of the Scrolls of Merlin, chat, electrifies Hudson. He falls back. He's like, ugh! And he goes down into the sea, chat, into the depths of the Atlantic. Meanwhile, all the gargoyles, they go ahead and they check on Elisa Mazza and Bluestone. The plump bottoms, they're fucking dead. They've been eviscerated. It's like, oh no! And she's like, the fucking scrolls. And Goliath's like, the scrolls don't matter. You matter to me, Elisa. She's like, I know we're going to fuck at the end of season 2, but you got to go after the scrolls. She's like, okay, I'll go after the scrolls. And so they see Broadway's attached themselves to the female mercenaries hovercraft chat, and they see it going away. And they're like, oh shit. We should go after them. We should go after Broadway. I guess, and Lexington Metro. No, I think it was either Brooklyn or possibly Lexington. And they say, I think I saw Hudson on the other ship, the other hovercraft. He must have also followed. I bet that we'll meet up with them. They chase at the Broadway. Meanwhile, though, Chad, we cut down to the sea, and Hudson, he's like floating, like he's been knocked out, but he's floating, Chad. And eventually he washes up. He washes up on this beach, chat, and he's like near fucking death, and he sees this mysterious thing coming towards him, this figure, chat, and it cuts to black. Meanwhile, chat, we land on the, we cut back to the 2 mercenaries. They land their fucking hovercrafts. The one guy's like, my fucking eye! And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. We have health insurance. I thought that was a great line. We have health insurance with this job. Take it easy, okay? And thankfully, I got the other Scroll of Merlin. And he's like, you mean the scroll which you left in the ship that has that giant fucking hole in it? And she's like, what? And we see this giant Broadway-sized hole. He's a thick gargoyle. You got a big tummy. This giant Broadway-sized hole that has just been punctured through the aircraft, and they go, shit, that's not good. And so they start to look around the facility trying to find Broadway. Meanwhile, chat, we cut back to Hudson. Hudson, he's come to, and he feels like this licking on his face, and he wakes up, and it's this dog. It's this dog is looking at him, chat, and he has a harness, and this man who's holding this harness to this dog is this man, chat. His name, and it's this blind man. And Hudson goes, oh, because Hudson briefly panics because he's like, oh shit, he's gonna see my gargoyle, he's gonna freak out. And the blind man's like, oh, do you? I forget the dog's name. I think his dog's name's, I don't know, Susie or something. He's like, Susie, do you smell something? Is there anyone there? And he goes, oh, sorry, sir, I don't mean to disturb you. He goes, no, are you okay? Susie seems very concerned. She was whining and whimpering, and she only does that when she sees something that concerns her. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I'm very weak. I just don't feel very well. He's like, well, here, come with me. I can take you to my home. Lean on me. And it's like, this is the first time, other than like Elisa Mazza, that the gargoyles have encountered other human as kind of, but again, this man doesn't, he's blind shade. He can't see. So, I mean, who knows what his reaction would be? We would know, though. He's a good guy. And he's like, well, thank you, sir. May I ask your name? And he's like, my name is Mr. Robbins. And, this character, chat, for the rest of the series is pretty much the mystical, magical black man of gargoyles who teaches the gargoyles life lessons. He's pretty much a blind LeVar Burton. That's really what he is, chat. But he helps Hudson inside, and he sits him down. He's like, let me make you some hot tea. That's what you need right now. And he makes him some hot tea. He gives some to him. He's like, what happened? He's like, Hudson's like, I'm sorry, I just don't remember. I fell into the water and I washed up here. He's like, oh, I understand. He's like, I've had my difficulties as well. And he's like, and Hudson's like, I was like, well, what's happened to you? He's like, well, I fought in the war. I fought in Nam. And, Hudson's like, Nam? And he's like, Vietnam. I fought in Vietnam. That's what I was doing. Are you not familiar with it? He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not from around here. He goes, oh, well, I fought in Vietnam, and I was blinded. And I spent my retirement writing books. And he's in this giant library, Chad. It's like the fucking library from Beauty and the Beast. He's like, Hudson's like, you wrote all of these books? And he goes, no, I wish. I wrote several. I wrote about a dozen novels. Some of them were more successful than others. Here, you can look at this one. And he gives one of the books to Hudson, and Hudson takes the book, and he's like, oh, he opens it up, and he's like, I don't understand. There's no words in it. There's just bumps. And he goes, that's Braille. And he's like, and Hudson's like, oh, I can't read it. And he's like, well, not many people can. But I love to read. And Hudson's like, bumps, squiggles. It means nothing to me. He's like, you can't read, can you? He goes, no, I cannot read. No, I cannot read. And he's like, well, I can teach you to read. He's like, nah, I'm too old for that. And he tells him, like, listen, it's basically like you should read. This is the you should read episode of Gargoyles. He's like, it's no shame in not being able to read. The only shame is not trying to learn. And Hudson's like, oh, Robbins, I really appreciate everything. And they just talk, and they have a great it's a wonderful relationship. Like, Robbins comes in throughout the entire series, and strangers, you have a fantastic night. Thank you. He's a recurring character throughout the series. Shay's a very good friend of Hudson. Eventually, he finds out what they are, that they are gargoyles. But in all seriousness, Robbins is a fantastic character, chat. I love it. And it shows the importance of reading to kids, which is very good. And they talk for the whole night. Meanwhile, chat, we cut back to the facility where Broadway is hiding, chat. He doesn't know where the fuck he is, so he's just going to keep the scroll away from the mercenaries, chat. But he tries to escape. Who fucking confronts him, chat? MacBeth. MacBeth himself. He's like, oh. Mac goes, how you doing, laddie? And he fucking shoots him, chat, with like a giant like grenade launcher. He has like a smoke grenade and douses him in chloroform. Just his whole body, chat. And he's, and he faints. And MacBeth, he picks up one of the scrolls. He's like, yes, the Scroll of Merlin. And he reads these things. He's like, it's the second scroll. Shit, well, I'll need the first scroll in order to translate it. And so it'll be safe because Merlin, he definitely left some pretty dangerous booby traps. I should know. I sealed these scrolls myself hundreds of years ago, which is awesome because this is the first time we hear that MacBeth is actually hundreds of years old, chat, nearly 1,000 years old. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's all that about? But then these two mercenaries come in and are like, sir, actually, we kind of misplaced the other scroll. And he's like, the fuck you talking about, laddies? He's very upset about this, chat. Meanwhile, come back to the Gargoyles. We're talking to Lisa Mazza. And Lisa's just like, fucking David Xanatos obviously did this. He's the guy that did this. You guys should check out the castle and see if he has Broadway in the scrolls. And Goliath's like, you got it, honey. And they fucking glide over to the castle, chat, David Xanatos' building. And they just fucking burst in there like the Kool-Aid man. Oh, yeah. And fucking Goliath's like, fuck you, Alan Rickman. Where the hell is David Xanatos? And Al Rickman's like, why would you wish to speak with him? And it's like, you have Broadway, you have the Scrolls of Merlin. He's like, we don't have those things. We don't have those things. David Xanatos is sleeping. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. And so Goliath, he bursts into David Xanatos' bedroom. And David Xanatos is like, whoo! And he's like, where is the Scrolls of Merlin? He's like, what are you talking about? I didn't take that shit. All right? I know I'm pretty, nefarious. I know I have a lot of schemes going on. All of my ships are in the shop. Okay? He's like, really? Yeah. Can I go back to sleep? All right. So he goes back to sleep. And then Alan Rickman's like, I told you. He's like, shut the fuck up. All right, we get it. But he mentions, he's like, hey, I know that MacBeth has a few aircraft like these. And they go, MacBeth, haven't seen him since season 1. We'll go ahead and check on it. And so, meanwhile, Chad, we cut back to Hudson. And he stayed the entire night with Mr. Robbins. He's just talking with him, learning from him, Chad. But the dawn is coming, Chad. The dawn is coming. And he's like, I'm sorry, I must go. And he's like, are you sure you can still stay longer if you need any rest? He's like, no, I will return soon. Don't you, Mr. Robbins? Thank you for your hospitality. And he just fucking leaves, Chad. Right? He sits on his, this wall, and he turns to stone, Chad, as the sun hits him. And Robin's like, Hudson? He's like trying to call for him, but he's like, all right, I guess he went, back. He left. So he goes back inside, clean up everything. But then, chat, one of the hovercraft planes lands. And it's piloted by MacBeth of the two henchmen in there, Chad, the two mercenaries. And, one of the mercenaries saying, like, sir, it's possible that the scroll probably fell into the sea. And he's like, if that fucking scroll fell into the sea, I'll put both of you in it. And they're like, whoa. But thankfully, chat, they land there and they see the MacBeth walks out and he's like, this will be a good starting operation. But then the dog starts, Susie, where the fuck the dog's name is, like, starts barking and shit. And Mr. Robbins is someone there? Can I help you? And MacBeth is like, oh no, it's fine, Mo. No, I'm just here. I'm looking for a friend of mine. Have you seen someone named Hudson? And they're like, oh, you just missed him. I apologize. He's like, oh, don't pay no mind. And Robbins asks his name. I forget what like name he gives. It's like based on two like Shakespeare characters. Chat. Basically, it's my name is I'm a Shakespeare character, and he's like, all right, that's kind of weird. And it's like, all right, we'll see you later, laddie. And he walks out. Mr. Robbins goes back inside, but he notices the Hudson statue. He's like, oh, there's the fucking scroll. Yoink! And he takes that shit, chat. And him and the two mercenaries, they fly back. Meanwhile, they're back in there. Like it's nightfall again. It becomes it's night. Hudson's like, ah, he breaks out. He goes and see Robbins. He's like, where's the scroll? And he wants, excuse me, Mr. Robbins, I wanted to ask you, did I leave a scroll here in your living room on your terrace? And he's like, oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't see anything. Obviously, I didn't notice anything out of place. And he goes, oh, but there was a man who stepped by here recently. He left this he tells the name, whatever it was, the Shakespeare name. And he's like, I don't know, a Maddox Lennox or something like that. And he goes, it's funny. And the name he mentioned, they're like two names in a Shakespeare book, which is quite odd. And, I don't, which I felt was a phony name. And he goes to his wall and he says there are two characters in this book called MacBeth. And Hudson's like, that motherfucker, MacBeth, I know him. He's an asshole. And he's like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. That guy is no friend of mine. He's no friend of mine. He's here to hurt people. And he's like, Mr. Robbins, I'll listen. I'll be back. I want to learn to read, but I gotta help my friends right now, okay? And this MacBeth, he's a bad egg. He's the definition, chat, of a bad egg. And he's like, Robbins like, hey man, you go ahead and do it. Are we best buds? Hell yeah, we are. Gargoyle, Mr. Robbins, bro fist handshake. And so Hudson, he flies off. Meanwhile, chat, we're on this giant hovercraft, like floating thing. And it's with MacBeth and the two henchmen and Broadway, who's been chained up, and they're going to Macbeth's castle because they're going to perform the ceremony to unlock Merlin's scrolls. And Broadway's like, what are you gonna get from two corny scrolls, phony scrolls? And he's like, these scrolls were written by Merlin himself. They contain all of his secrets, his magic. Is like, what's this Merlin guy? What's he all about? Merlin was one of the greatest sorcerers, if not the greatest sorcerer and philosophers of my age. He is the one who helped find King Arthur, guided him through many trials and tribulations, created one of the most honest and chivalrous kingdoms to ever exist, and saw it fall at the same, all in the same time. And Broadway's listening to the story. He's like, you were there? And Macbeth's like, no, I read about it, you idiot. He's like, but it sounds like you were there. He's like, I fucking read it. Can't you read, Broadway? He goes, no. He's like, you can't read, you idiot. That's funny. We're going to go land. And so they land, Chan, they start the ceremony. Meanwhile, Hudson, the other gargoyles, they meet up right outside of Macbeth's castle. And they're like, all right, this fucking crazy Macbeth guy, clearly he's got Broadway. He's about to open the scrolls. We got to fucking infiltrate and stop this shit from going down. They're like, cool. He's probably got like a lot of, weapons online that we might have to stop. Let's go. Let's just, do a little reconnaissance and figure out what's going on. We cut back to the castle, chat. Broadway's all chained up, and Macbeth's like, so Broadway is the only one that here I can talk to. I'm performing this ritual to open all the scrolls, and it contains all the magics of Merlin. And I'm going to test them all on you. I'm going to fuck you up, baby. And he's like, whoa! He's very scared. Meanwhile, chat, the gargoyles are like, all right, we see the two fucking mercenaries. They're like inside these turrets. We got to take them out. We got to bamboozle them. And so they're fucking flying around, chat. And so these turrets are just going every which way, chat. Left, right, all around, up, down, just confusing them until fucking Goliath, he slams into the girl, grabs her chick, throws her off the fucking castle ramparts, hits the ground, explodes. Turret taken out. Another guy, he's spinning around. Hudson, he hits the guy, breaks the man's fucking clavicle, chat, and collapses a lung, and he slowly just suffocates to death. It's pretty bad. But it's like, they were bad people, chat. It's okay. But eventually, they go down there. Macbeth, he performs the ritual, chat. He manages to unseal the scrolls. Oh, no. And he takes them out, and he starts reading. And all it is, chat, all it simply is, it's Merlin's diary. It just talks about all of Merlin's thoughts and feelings on this young boy, this Arthur, who somehow was able to remove the sword from the stone, the Excalibur itself, hundreds of years ago. And he is like, but this boy seems to be come from simple means, but anyone who shall remove the sword from the stone will lead the many people to great prosperity, and will maintain honor and maintain chivalrous nature. And he's like, I need to help guide this boy. It is my destiny. It's his destiny to be a great leader. And he's reading all this. He's like, huh? It's a diary. What the fuck? And then Goliath comes down, goes punch, and punches MacBeth in the face and grabs the scrolls. And he's like, hey, fucking release Broadway, all right? Or I'll burn the goddamn scrolls. And MacBeth's like, fucking burn them. They're useless. It's just some dumb journal. And Broadway's like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Goliath, please. He's like, listen, they don't contain any spells, but those scrolls are magical. It's Merlin's life. It's the story of his life and Arthur and his kingdom and all the great things they did together. To destroy them would take them away from this world, and we can't do that. You can't burn them. And MacBeth hears this. He's like, well, now I feel like a really big asshole. All right, well, you could take the scrolls, I guess, and you're trespassing, so please leave. How are my 2 mercenaries? Killed them. Shit! All right. Well, you can go. And so they fly away. They fly away, chat, with the scrolls. And, Hudson, Hudson has one of the scrolls and Broadway has the other one. And, it's like, they're talking about, like, we'll give the scrolls to Elisa Maza, and she'll give them the Museum of the Metropolitan Museum of Art and all that shit. And, but, Broadway's like, oh, I can't wait to read the scroll. Oh, that's the thing. Lexington's like, I can't wait to read the scrolls. And Broadway's like, yeah, I would love to hear about them. And Goliath's like, I can read them to you before we give them to Elisa. And Hudson says, no, Goliath, give them to her. Broadway and we're going to learn to read, and we'll read these scrolls ourselves someday. And Hudson, for the first time, acknowledges, much like Broadway, who's like, I don't need to read. Hudson never revealed that he couldn't read. And he's like, we're going to learn how to read, Broadway, because reading is important. Okay, chat? And then they give the scrolls to Lisa Miles. She's like, wow, I can't believe his name is Angela. She's like, I know, right? MacBeth, he's finally back. By the way, the stuff they do with MacBeth in this fucking season is amazing, chat. Because he's like, okay, what's this deal? It's like, they hint at that he's far older than he is. The stuff they do with MacBeth is really fucking cool and sad. This man led a very sad life, chat. He's a great character. He's a fantastic character. They give the scrolls to, Lisa Miles. She gives them the museum. And then we cut back to Hudson and Broadway going to see Mr. Robbins, chat. And Hudson's like, I brought a friend with me. And he's like, oh, happy to have you. Come inside. And it's like, let's go ahead and start reading. And it's like, yay, chat. And Robbins has this whole speech how, like, reading, chat, is like a lighthouse in a sea of time. As time goes on, things can change. We can go through so much adversity. We can go through all sorts of things. But a book, it exists as a lighthouse, chat. It's always there. You can always have it. And it's very much indeed that lighthouse in this times of troubles and adversity. It's a great message. It's a great message, a great name for the episode, chat. And that, my friends, is Gargoyles episode 17, A Lighthouse in the Sea of Time.